And so, you know, I believe we've mentioned it. This will be recorded. It will include the blessing on the recording. I am recording now. And we will have that on YouTube, our website, on Facebook, KKCR. We'll have replays through their archives and Hoike, I believe on channel 54. So there'll be a lot of opportunity. So here we go. If you guys are ready, I'm going to go ahead and get started here with our blessing.
Aloha mai kako o Sabre Kauka Ko'inoa. I'm here to welcome you to the Kauai County Council Candidates Forum and to offer you this aloha, this blessing that speaks of Kauai. Ea e kalama kahikina, kahiki mai aloha kupuna e, ku kahali ai kali awai kini, waiale ale molale e, eia e na puale mokihana, kamawai lualani ua vehi e vehi ke ia aloha e, aloha kuone hana ue, aloha no, aloha e, mano kalani po, aloha e, aloha no, aloha e, mano kalani po, aloha e, aloha.
Okay. And now we will be going.
Hello. If you had any difficulty listening in on this with Sabra's message, if it didn't come through, it will be on the Facebook. And we so appreciate her blessing. Thank you, Sabra, and welcome everybody to the second Kauai County Council Candidates Forum. This event is sponsored by the Community Coalition of Kauai, working in collaboration with the Just Transition Hawaii Coalition. I'm David Dinner, and with me is Juno Apala and Jesse Brown Clay. We will be your moderators. The purpose of the forums is to offer voters an opportunity to evaluate the candidates and their positions. All candidates running for the County Council were invited to participate in the forum. For those who have been able to join us, thank you. You are giving the public an opportunity to learn about you and your perspectives during this challenging COVID-19 period that has made campaigning difficult. There will be 3 rounds of questions relating to key issues that our community faces in this new environment: food security, tourism, and affordable housing. Each candidate has received the questions in advance and has had an opportunity to prepare for the discussions. Each will answer the same questions according to his or her own priorities or position, and each will have 2.5 minutes to respond. There will be a voice warning when there are 20 seconds left. That'll be my voice. At the 2.5 minute mark, the microphone will be muted. To introduce and welcome the candidates, here is Juno Apala.
Aloha, everybody. And a quick reminder to please keep your mic muted unless it is your turn to speak. This will help prevent potential technical glitches along the way. Now, without ado, these are the candidates who, with their short bios that they provided us, and we shortened some of them to make it more uniform. Most of them have sites you can go to visit for more information. And our first candidate is Jade Waialeale Batad. She has been married to Poki Batad for 28 years, is a proud mom of 3 children, and has 2 grandchildren. Of all her accomplishments she's most proud of, it's her ohana. Dr. Addison Bulosano was born and raised on Kauai. He is the owner and operator of the Specific Chiropractic Center on both Maui and Kauai. He is also a performing musician and is active in the Lihue business community as the president of the Rice Street Business Association. Donovan Kabibi was raised on Big Island and is a father of 3. He is a chef and stagehand by trade. Donovan is an ordained minister and operates a small event management business. He is a longtime advocate for Indigenous rights, social and environmental justice, clean and regenerative food systems, and safe spaces for our children. Bernard Carvalho worked for 17 years as a civil servant, 6 years as a department head, and held part-time positions in the tourism and airline industries. He was honored to serve as the mayor of the County of Kauai and Ni'ihau for 10 years, the longest term served by anyone as mayor in the County of Kauai and Ni'ihau. Mason Chalk was appointed to the Kauai County Council in 2013 and has since then served 3 terms as a council member. He is currently the Planning Committee Chairman, serves as a Director of the Environmental, Energy, and Land Use, NACO, or National Association of Counties Committee, and is the HSAC, or Hawaii Association of Counties alternate. Felicia Cowden is running for a 2nd term in the council. She has been an engineer, teacher, and small business owner. She is a public affairs radio show host and longtime community and legislative advocate who believes in putting people first. Mike Danderand is the owner of Custom Sounds Kauai. In this role, Mike has had the unique privilege in sharing the most special moments and rites of passages with thousands of Kauai residents. Billy DeCosta is a 4th-generation local who grew up in Pakala in the sugar plantation era, and he is married to his soulmate with 3 sons. He is a 20-year environmental school teacher for the state and a local cattle rancher. Deborah-Lynn De Silva Carvero lives in Hanapepe and believes in transparency and drug testing for all government and county employees. She believes that since our budget is in the hands of 7 individuals, being focused is a must for our island. Luke Evslin is currently serving his 1st term on the Kauai County Council. He is the co-owner of a composites manufacturing shop on Oahu, is currently completing his final semester of a master's degree in public administration, and lives in Lihue with his wife and 2 children. Victoria Franks has been married for 33 years and has 3 children. Her passion is for people, and for 30 years she has served in a nonprofit organization helping people. To her, serving in government is a personal and professional mandate. Richard Fukushima was born and raised in Kapa'a. His interest lies in helping the kapunas and veterans. He is passionate about education as well as other mainstream topics like traffic, housing, and roads. Ed Justice is the owner and operator of Talk Story Bookstore, which he started 15 years ago and is Kauai's only bookstore. Ed Justice and his wife Yoriko are residents of Kalaheo. Errol Kaneshiro presently serves as the council chair. He is a graduate of Pacific University in Oregon and is certified public accountant. He also works at Grow Farm Company Incorporated as a project manager and assists his dad with the 800 sheep ranch in Omao. Kipukai Kuali'i currently serves in the council as the chair of the council's Housing and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. He is also the vice chair of the Finance and Economic Development Committee. He is one of the 2 Hawaii board members for the National Association of Counties, and he works part-time as the director of operations at the YWCA of Kauai. Jackie Nelson is currently on the board of the Kapa'a Business Association, and she's the president of the Kapa'a Rotary Club. She would love the opportunity to be a full-time public servant as a member of the Kauai County Council because her passion is to serve her community. Wally Nishimura grew up on the east side of Kauai, currently resides in Anahola, and is happily married with 4 children. He currently serves our island community by working in the healthcare industry as the Regional Safety Officer and Environmental Services Superintendent. Finally, Clint Yago Sr. is a carpenter who works with private businesses to build homes, both residential and commercial. He is an ordinary citizen and thrives on helping others in need. To start us off with our first question, I turn it over to Jesse. Hey, Jesse, take it away.
Aloha, everyone. Tonight's first question pertains to agriculture and sustainable food systems on Kauai. The question is this: what would you do to grow Kauai's agricultural economy and increase the island's food sustainability? Food sustainability requires affordable land, housing, and marketing. What would you do to assure that land, housing, and marketing needs are met to strengthen our food security? How can we reduce the loss of water from our streams and apportion the distribution of water more fairly to encourage a more sustainable farm program? The first to answer this question is Deborah-Lynn De Silva Carvero. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Aloha, everyone. This is Eva Carvero. Everybody knows me. Well, to start off is start monitoring illegal water usage that some people divert into their lands. Start having open meetings to hear what your people are saying. Sometimes they have awesome ideas that can be used. And lastly, stop having people who buy these big ag lands from building mansions on their property. There should be little huts for their workers and shelter units to house material, equipment, and etc. There should be an incentive for more farmers to farm for food supply. As I see, there's a lot of herders and farmers out there, and you know, one thing I know for food sustainability is that instead of eradicating our animals, we should be using them for our food instead of getting rid of them. I mean, we have hunters and farmers out there that can get it and, you know, start supplying. I mean, why should we have to import everything from out of the island when we can have it on our own island? Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah Lynn. Next up is Luke Evslin.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate the moderators for organizing this. Super quick shout out to my wife. It's our 9th wedding anniversary tonight. So we get the romantic honor of being able to spend that all with you folks tonight. To answer the question, you know, we've had a pretty precipitous decline in large and small farms over the last 20 years, at least in terms of small farms. You know, one of the primary barriers to farming is the cost of land. You cannot, as a small farmer, try and buy land and then pay off that mortgage by producing crops, right? Maybe you can hit it big with value-added product. For the most part, people can't make it, right? So number one is to reduce the development pressure on ag land. As long as we have ag land competing on the market for, you know, houses versus crops, houses are going to win, right? So, and we're going to get to this more in the housing-related question on how to reduce development pressure on ag land. But part of it is to develop our town cores. Part of it is to reduce any, push to increase density on ag land. The other things that we need to be doing is reducing the barriers to enter the market for farmers. Right now, you know, farmers can't have an ag retail operation on their farmland. This means if you got, you know, 2 kids selling lemonade on the side of the street, that's a zoning violation. You know, and they could be fined $10,000 a day for doing that, right? Planning department's not going to do that, but we need to modify our CZO to allow more ag retail, to allow farmers to get to market better, right? And the other thing, I think if there's anything good that's going to come out of COVID, right? And I almost hesitate to say good because COVID is so terrible, but is this whole, you know, buy local, right? I think everybody recognizes it right now, the need to buy local to keep our economy running, right? And we need to carry that forward. If we're gonna have local farms, that relies on us supporting those local farms. So, you know, a commitment from everybody to continue buying local. As far as the second half of the question regarding water diversion, you know, I'll briefly touch on it. It's not a council issue, but I think it's important to talk about because it does really represent, you know, sort of a wicked policy problem with no perfect answer. On the one hand, if you're diverting water and that's, you know, going into hydroelectricity, creating clean energy, reduces our reliance on fossil fuels, going to farmers who are going to produce food, food security, right? Reducing our reliance on overseas crops. That's a good thing, right? From a global environmental perspective, but it has targeted impacts on the river, right? It impacts local ecology of the river, right? It's almost a zero-sum push and pull between these two things. The hard part is how do you find the balance, right? That's outside of my pay grade. But part of it is that there's going to be no perfect answer here when you have competing forces like this. So that's part of the nature of, you know, difficult policy problems that I think we deal with all the time. That's my 2:30. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to talking more.
Thank you, Luke. Next up is Wally Nishimura.
Aloha. Thank you, Juno. Thank you, Jesse. Everybody who organized this. I'd like to see county land used. I discussed this on the radio show at KKCR just the other week. And I think county having land set aside at no cost to let local farmers grow food that can go not only to our own tables, but to our supermarkets and to our entire island, 100% local. And the question was brought up as well, if I'd support eminent domain to make that happen as well, and I would. I'd support eminent domain for farming, and I'd support it for infrastructure to move toward the mountains. And I think with that, we need to be able to work with these companies that want to come here, because with farming, we're going to have hemp, which we can grow and make a lot of money off of, which is sitting on Ige's desk as we speak. And we're gonna have food that we can eat. And whatever companies that we want to welcome in to come in and be good stewards to help really revitalize our agriculture, I want them to be aware of our living situations for locals on this island. I want them to know that we used to have a plantation set up to where families could live in a single wall house, pay a very small rent to stay there, and save money to move off and be able to purchase their own home later while raising a family and staying here. And that's a diversified economy that would keep local people home, that would keep kids my age and younger home from having to move away to the mainland. And that creates a lot of opportunity. When it comes to water diversion, I know it's not a county issue or county has oversight over that, it's a state, but as a council member, as an elected official, you have a say. Your word carries weight, and you should use that. You should work with our legislators, our state senator, and our state government to watch where the water is going, what it's going for. Luke made a lot of good points. We gotta watch how we're using water. If we're using it to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels with energy, then that's a great thing. If we're killing all the plants and the fish downstream from that, then it's not. So we gotta find the balance. And that's what we need to do.
Mahalo, Wally.
Thank you.
Next up is Jackie Nelson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And mahalo to the Kauai Coalition for putting this on again. I really appreciate it. It's going to be informative and fun, and I appreciate all the hard work that went into this. So I think, and you're going to hear this from me a lot, we need to engage the farmers in the discussion, first and foremost. I think our farmers have been some of the biggest heroes during this pandemic shutdown. They've continued to find innovative ways to distribute food to a largely sequestered population. The county needs to create a business-friendly environment for them, making it easier for them to access water, and maybe using more of a carrot than a stick approach, if I can use a farm analogy. So offer incentives to farmers who are routinely found to be making the best use of their water resources and using them responsibly. We need to further that business-friendly environment by allowing them to house some of their workers on site too. Again, offering incentives to those who do it in a low impact, environmentally friendly way. But just allowing them some latitude to house more of their staff would be inherently better for the environment. It would reduce the number of island beaters on the road for sure, and that would be great for all of us. I think the farms are an area of opportunity in our tourism industry as well as providing, food and resources for us. I think Wally just mentioned hemp. Kauai is the Garden Isle. Tourists would love to see organic farms, chocolate farms, hemp farms, hardwood farms, biodynamic, permaculture. We can reimagine the farming model for those who are willing to take that step and go in more of a business direction and use this valuable land to increase their revenue and diversify farming in general into different business models as they desire. They should be able to do things, why can't we make it possible for them to host a wedding or have a drive-in movie or, stuff like that? And
20 seconds, check.
Education system. Okay, so in summary, let's see, I have a summary here somewhere. We have a lot to learn from them, and we just need to make it possible for them to do business. So when we think food, we need to think farms and fishermen, not Madsen and Young Brothers. We need to create a business-friendly environment for them, and we need to use the carrot, not the stick, as incentives for them to be responsible with their land and water use. And most importantly, we need to engage them in the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Next up to answer is Jade Vaialeale Batad. Please go ahead, Jade.
Aloha ahi ahi. Kako. Aloha everyone. Our kupuna modeled the way. Our community fed itself before European contact and during World War II. And we met most of our food needs, again, with both home gardens and larger scale of local farming efforts. We can do this again. Some of the solutions are clear: zoning changes like restrictions on the use of agriculture land for luxury, non-farm homes are one option. Careful preservation of plantation irrigation systems to ensure that water is available for crops is another. The expansion of the farmers market program and encouraging supermarkets to carry locally produced products. Farmer cooperatives have not had a great deal of success on our island, but we should not give up. I agree with Jackie. You know, our farmers are truly the unsung heroes, and even those that aren't farmers have taken to farming because of COVID, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I think perhaps with new community support, they can succeed. And I'd like to have discussion that would listen to our farmers, and then I'd like to help them do what they're doing, because farming is truly a labor of love, a beautiful labor of love. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jade. Next up is Ed Justice. Go ahead, Ed. Oh, I believe you're still muted.
How's that?
Perfect.
Good. Okay. Hi, thanks for having me. Bringing back agriculture is actually the reason I'm running for this office, because it's the same platform I ran on 10 years ago when I was trying to run for council. To me, can you still hear me? Yes? Yeah, okay. So to me, the thing is with agriculture, if we're serious about food sustainability, we need to recognize that agriculture as being critical infrastructure, because then that helps us fund it through public safety means. Because the reality is, we're in a situation that if we get cut off from the mainland or any other import sources, our supplies are not going to last us very long. And we can grow so much food here and materials. We can grow enough food that we can feed not only everyone on Kauai, but we can feed the entire island chain. And at this point, we only produce 10% of the state's agriculture, whereas Oahu, they produce almost 30%, and they have less agricultural land than we do. I think some of the ways we can incentivize this, in addition to doing critical infrastructure, is that we need to make a separate vacant ag land tax. So if people are holding on to massive parcels of vacant ag land, we need to charge them a higher rate. So that way the funds that we earn from that higher vacant ag land tax rate can be used for people who are doing active diversified agriculture. And I think that's one important thing. And it's not something that's new or unusual. Other islands actually do this. So we're just kind of following in the footsteps of people who are already producing more agriculture than we are. The other thing I think is important is to follow the path of people who've already done this. For instance, New Zealand, they already did this. They did this decades ago. They actually figured out how to be food sustainable, and it works, right? So their government helped provide incentives and support to make it happen, and it did happen. Eventually, they got over the hump of the startup costs and were able to make agricultural industries a profitable business for the people that were doing it. And then over time, they weaned them off of that, and now it's a successful model. In fact, as it stands now with COVID-19, even though they lifted the quarantine from their own place, they've isolated themselves from the rest of the world. Guess why? Because they can feed themselves, and we should be able to do the same thing, and we have the ability. That's the best part about this. So we just take their model, adapt it to our needs, and I know we can make that happen. It's totally doable. And as far as the question about what to do about distribution of water fairly, that's something that we can work with the water department on, helping to provide infrastructure, so we can try to make sure that all the water streams are equitably distributed. So, you know, it's all possible, and I know we can do it. It's just a golden opportunity. And the cool thing about it is it also adds more jobs. Not only do you get agricultural jobs, but you create value-added businesses that are going to make product out of the crops that are being produced. And then you also have another industry that's being created, supportive industries for those businesses and for the agricultural industry. So instead of just relying on one economic sector, mostly tourism, we actually get to rely on four. right? I mean, 1 to 4 is a pretty amazing step just by revitalizing agriculture. So that's why I'm running. We can bring it back.
Thank you,
Thanks
Ed.
for listening.
Thank you, Ed. Next up is Errol Kanashiro.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. You know, first off, I just want to start off just talking about myself a little bit. My family's been in agriculture on Kauai for 4 generations. My great grandpa started the Kanashiro pig farm, which, I mean, we all unfortunately know shut down this year. My grandpa owned a chicken farm, and in his later years grew fruits and vegetables for the farmer's market. And my dad, brother, and I continue our farming legacy with a ranch of, I think our last count was 900 sheep now, so I better update my profile on that, Juno. But my dad's also dabbling in hemp and CBD production, which I think a lot of you mentioned earlier. You know, as a project manager at Grove Farm, I work with farmers and ranchers every single day. We have over 100 ag tenants and approximately 9,000 acres in active agriculture, both diversified and pasture. I know firsthand the difficulties of agriculture and the need to support it. I think the best thing that legislative bodies can do for farmers is to stay out of their way. You know, let farmers farm. We hear a lot about people wanting to protect and preserve agriculture. You hear terms like grow what we eat, buy local, eat local, support your local farmer, but make no mistake, there are some people saying that they want to protect and preserve agriculture while also fighting. They're fighting water for agriculture use. They're opposing new agriculture ventures. They're vilifying farmers, ranchers, and landowners that are trying to preserve agriculture. So, you know, we need to be aware of this movement, and the entire agriculture community needs to work together. Ultimately, agriculture needs to succeed in order to perpetuate our ranching and paniolo lifestyle, to provide fresh local produce to our residents, and to prevent urban sprawl from encompassing our open space and ag lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Errol. Next up is Victoria Franks. Go ahead, Victoria.
All right. Oh, thank you so much for being able to participate in this. Hello, everyone. And Errol, you started out with exactly what I was going to say about getting out of the farmer's way. That's what the main thing we need to do. But a lot of this is going to take a lot of public-private partnerships, because Grove Farm owns a lot of land and does have, you know, tenant farmers that run it. There are also a couple of other landowners, large landowners, that I believe should be approached about being able to perhaps lease their land in order. I mean, there's lots of undeveloped land that I think could be used also, so that we can encourage potential farmers to want to get involved in it, to offer them incentives to make that happen. We need to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table, the people that are already farming, so that we don't get in their way. I'm one that I'm a supporter of limited government. So that means people's rights to be able to farm should be honored. Also, I believe that education is very important, because nowadays our kids, a lot of them just think that their produce comes from the store. They don't realize it's being grown somewhere. So if you're familiar with AHK, the group on the North Shore, and what they're doing as far as educating children and providing farms at the schools and stuff like that, they're doing a great job with that. I do think we need to make everything easier for the farmers to get their produce and their products out into the local markets. All of that needs to be easier. Whatever we need to do to change zoning or whatever, that's the way we can do it. But that's the main thing, of getting out of the farmer's way to be able to accomplish that. As far as the water goes, we live in one of the wettest places in the world. Why are we not taking advantage of the rainfall, providing catchment systems, or increasing or upgrading what we already have in order to be able to take advantage of that natural resource? And as far as the streams that are being diverted, that's something that probably does need to have a little more oversight, more regulation on it. But I believe that that's what we need to do.
Thank you, Victoria. Next up is Donovan Kabibi. Go ahead, Donovan.
Get that unmuted. All right. Aloha. Mahalo for tuning in. Mahalo to the kupuna. Mahalo kia kua. Mahalo to the organizers. I tend to think in four-part solutions like the corner posts. And so for me, with regard to agriculture and food sustainability, I'm looking at zoning. I'm looking at accountability and enforcement. I'm looking at creating partnerships and opening up the pathway and reducing the hurdles that exist for business opportunities for agriculture. So through zoning, we have agricultural zone land, we have urban zone land. We don't have, or we haven't utilized rural zoning. By defining land use within these zones, we'll be able to regulate how the land is used and for what purposes. Opening up partnerships with the state, the county, and private individuals to create a cooperative effort that'll welcome investors to create infrastructure, which is the fourth pillar. Infrastructure for our agricultural ventures is lacking. And so that brings us to water, and accountability needs to be applied to how water is managed. If you're not using the water currently, then you shouldn't have water management as part of your program. So who uses the water, who's managing the water, who's responsible for the water, how we deliver the water are all things that the county needs to sit with the folks who have a vested interest in how water gets used, so we can develop a proper water management system for Kauai that supports food sustainability as essential infrastructure, as was stated by other candidates. One of the things that you're going to see is that everybody has very similar ideas about what needs to be done. And that's because these are the conversations that the community has been having for a long time. And so it's going to be important for whomever is seating in these council seats to understand the value and the importance of not only the indigenous wisdom that's here with regard to land management, but also the modern scientific knowledge that is out there. And so working with the folks who are actively engaged in the industries, such as food production, water management, and land.
Thank you, Donovan. That was the 2.5 minute limit. So for listeners and participants, I'll now repeat tonight's first forum question. Make sure I'm unmuted. Yep. What would you do to grow, the question is this, what would you do to grow Kauai's agriculture economy and increase the island's food sustainability? Food sustainability requires affordable land, housing, and marketing. What would you do to assure that land, housing, and marketing needs are met to strengthen food security? How can we reduce the loss of water from our streams and apportion the distribution of water more fairly to encourage a more sustainable farm program? Next up to answer is Kipukai Kuli.
Aloha. Mahalo, Jesse, and to all the organizers, and mahalo to everyone who's listening in. You know, the added home time and the empty shelves in the stores caused by COVID-19 has given a lot of people the chance to try home gardening, the chance and the motivation. I haven't gotten there yet myself, but I do take care and feed the wild chickens in my yard, and occasionally I get some smaller eggs. So 90% of our food is being imported, and if we could convert just 10% of that to local production, we could bring hundreds of millions of dollars back to our local businesses and to our families. I would like to see us build on the success that our county has already had with the Kilauea Ag Community Park. And though it's taken many years for, and a lot of hard work for folks like at Aina Ho'okupu o Kilauea and others to get it up and running, they're doing an incredible job. And I've seen firsthand when we were giving out food in Waimea a couple of weeks ago, and they were present. Their produce was incredible. I love tomatoes, and I saw the biggest, best tomato I've ever seen in my whole life. So I would support that, more ag parks across the island, county, supporting that. And I'd also support our continued and improved support of the sunshine markets, expanding our Kauai made and grown program to grow local markets. And we saw during COVID how most of our farmers' goods was going to the hotels, and the hotels shut down. So then we had to figure out a way to get to the local people. Well, we need to grow the local people as a market for farmers here so that they can grow even more food. And supporting food gardens and food orchards. Why don't we have them at all our county supported housing projects, and edible landscaping at all our county facilities, and food bearing trees in our parks and in our parking lots. And I want us to work with the state to establish food forests all over the island. The county has this program in recycling for the compostable bins, where you go and get some education, and then in exchange, you get a bin for your backyard. Maybe we can do the same kind of program for container gardening, where you get education about that. Not everybody has yards with fertile soil. And so container gardenings, and maybe also water catchment. I've been meaning to do it myself. I haven't quite gotten to it yet. But we need to really think more about water and how we're using it. So to me, the most basic way we can support and strengthen food security is bringing folks together. I think there are a lot of people out there who has the knowledge, motivation, and desire to farm, but they don't necessarily have access to water and land. But there are others that have water and land. And we need to just bring them together, working together to do more food production. And perhaps the ag park in Kilauea is just one example of that. I know the county just acquired a bunch of land in Waimea, and they're designating some of it for affordable housing. I want to see them also dedicate the most fertile lands of that, several acres I hope, to agriculture as well, to growing food. So perhaps starting a ag park right there between Waimea and Kekaha. And even though the county's budget is tight, I think we should make it a priority to continue finding funding in small ways at least, food security and agriculture. And as far as the question about water, I think maybe one way we can look at reducing the loss of water from our streams is to work with the State Commission on Water and Resource Management to get them to require users such as KIUC with the hydro energy. When they take the water out to use it for hydro, they need to put it back in at downstream and leave the water in the streams for farmers.
Kipukai.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo Kipukai. Next up to answer is Mike Dandran.
All right. Aloha, everyone. So the question is agricultural economy. Sustainable development balances economic prosperity with environmental stewardship, social equity, and economic diversity. So we can expand our agricultural economy and improve upon the island's food sustainability with the creation of, I believe, with the creation of food hubs for local produce and dairy goods at the major population zones. So my vision is an evolved farmers market, so to speak, where these empty buildings like Kojima Store in Kapa'a, there are places, even the Foodland that's closing in Kapa'a as well. These are places that are going to be vacant. And I feel that if we can create an extended benefit of the ownership through, if we can create a food co-op at these locations, I think that would be an amazing thing. What I like to see is an online ordering and delivery system, extending the benefits of ownership through the community, prioritizing organic and local products, and increasing availability and access over the internet with a delivery system. Value is added for accessibility to residents through the food hubs and offering delivery and accepting SNAP benefits as a form of payment. So what I vision is these food hubs are local. People can go down and just shop with their farmers or pick up the food that's grown here on Kauai. Since I'm running out of time, I said there is a federal SNAP incentive program that increases the purchasing power of low-income families, helping people buy more healthy local foods, expanding markets for small farms, and supporting the regional economies by keeping the SNAP dollars circulating locally. Kauai High School won an award for a project that converts shipping containers into hydroponic farms. And so this also, the farm to school programs is an excellent idea that I would support. For the ag lands, farmers, I think county ag lands should be provided to farmers, and we have a lot of it at little or no charge, with the agreement that they will follow acceptable farming practices. The Cuba sustained model works, has done and shown that it works. For housing, I think that housing for farmers, we should permit farm workers, the permits should be relaxed. We should allow them at least some kind of a small multi-unit, much like a dormitory type of system. We're not looking at building huge houses that we're going to sell on the market. We're just looking for a place where these people, these farmers, these roofers even can come in and do some work and live. And they're not looking for anything fancy. I'd also like to see a collective marketing, ordering, and payment system and distribution where they can be done through online food co-op hubs. And this is going to be supported by HTA. They already have money set aside for this kind of program. KBED also has money, and the CARES Act has money set aside for these programs. So it's already fundable. On a side note, I'm wondering if it's possible to, these big box chain stores that sell imported produce that's available locally. I think if there's a way of excise taxing them for something like that, not only would it support the local farmer, but it would also cut down on the packaging waste that we have here on the island. And finally, about the water.
Mike, sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was time's up. The water is free. The thing about it is that the water has to come to the end user, and that's owned by the landowners here. And it's important that the landowners are good stewards of the waterways. And so I think that Kauai owns.
That's the time, Mike. Next, thank you, Mike. Next up to answer is Billy DeCosta.
Can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, let me know when I'm on there, Jesse. Thank you.
You're on, Billy.
Okay, mahalo everybody, and welcome. I'm excited. I actually like to say thank you to all our viewers, and thank you to the other candidates, man. Great answers. I'm impressed. I think if all of you could get elected on a council, it would be a great thing. The trouble with that is not many of you sitting here tonight are farmers. And I know I'm a farmer. I lease land, hundreds of acres, about 80 head of cattle. And I know Arrow's a farmer. So it takes a farmer to come up with a plan. And ladies and gentlemen, with 85% dependency on importing food, is asking for a 30% raise because they lost millions of dollars this year. We've been in this situation a couple decades ago, like Ed Justice said. And when I first ran in 2003, agriculture is the hub for our economy, and we're not moving on it. Now the pandemic hit and we all got all the right answers. Here's the answer, the solution, and the plan. Farm to live, private, state and county agencies working together to get long-term leases to have farms where people can live on to farm. I'm a farmer. I drive to my farm. It takes a lot of time. People have to live on their farm. Infrastructure that's put in, go green. Let's do a tertiary septic system that takes care of the water 3 times and it becomes portable for your garden. Let's have double roads like they have at the Habitat for Humanity in Eliele. You come off the paved road, you're driving on gravel into your driveway. Let's do rain catchment. Let's do a hydro from the mountain to the ocean. We generate electricity and we use the water to farm on the old plantation ditch lines. Farm to live would encourage people to live on the land on a long-term lease and be able to farm. 1 acre asparagus, 5 acres chickens, eggs, 100 acres cattle, mini dairy. Let's have a certified kitchen and a certified slaughterhouse where these community members can bring their products and not only sell it at the food hub, like Mr. Duran said, or at the farmer's market, like Arrow said, but how about a co-op store? A co-op that we own. We have to ask for investors. We put in money from our pocket. We own co-op. We have a certified kitchen. We have a certified slaughterhouse. And let's really put our money where our mouth is and make this happen. We've been talking about it way too long. We wait for another bacteria or another disease to come about. How about work to graduate? Have our students in high school come to the farm and spend 2 days a week on the farm learning and farming and 2 days a week at school. With social distancing, our kids cannot go to school all at once. They need wide open spaces. We got Robinson, we got Grow Farm, we got Castle and Cook, we got land, state land, Kilia, we got state land out there in Kaumakan and Hanapepe. We can work together with them. Private landowners seeing the importance of farming. I want to show you guys a product right here. You guys can all see this? Yeah, this is an ukulele made by a high school student. He gave it to me as a gift. High school kids can build these single wall dwelling plantation homes that people can live in that's deregulated. There is a way to do it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm asking you guys time and time again. My name is Billy DeCosta. Give me a chance on County Council, and together we'll make this happen. Thank you.
Hello, Billy. Next up to answer is Bernard Carvalho.
Aloha, and thank you again for the opportunity to share our stories, and it's been very interesting to everybody's mana'o. Very happy to be with all of you. Agriculture, of course, is a big part of who we are. From the old plantation days, my grandpa and grandma and all my family members are part of that, so sugar and pineapple. But as we fast forward till today, one of the bigger accomplishments, like Kipukai mentioned, of course, is the Ainoho Kupu Kilauea, the Kilauea Agricultural Park, which offers opportunities like for the community to actually gather together. The big part of it was securing the land, and then encompassing all the different partnerships within that community. But it's not only about the growing part, which is very important. It's the farmers market part of it. It's the results of what has been grown, but also the close proximity to the school, as like mentioned earlier. I was, believe it or not, a future farmer before. So I think supporting the Future Farmer program with a keiki with our students, actually visiting the ag park and having the ag park be located in various parts of the island, and like was mentioned earlier. So I think that's a great, great piece. And there's much more to come for that footprint of the agricultural park, reaping the benefits not only of the agricultural side, but the education, as well as the benefits for the community, and looking for resources to continue that. As far as the water part, I mean, very important. First of all, it's very culturally sensitive that we malama our water from the river streams and the streams and rivers, and how we best manage that. And first of all, I would like to offer a river and stream maintenance program. How do we manage our streams? How do we take care of our streams from the river mouth all the way up? I mean, had some thoughts on that, and water is so precious to us. And we've had some issues with the flooding areas and the water and the debris, but taking care of that before it happens. So I think the river and stream maintenance is a big project that I would like to talk about. Even stewardship agreements that could help Hawaiian organization to help manage the streams, the upper portion of the streams. And we work together from the private landowner to the government, all the way up the stream. And we manage that, and we take care of the streams.
20
of
seconds.
course, looking at the Commission on Water Resource Management, CWRM, and their responsibility. To me, water coming down, flowing is important, but also diverting in a very responsible way for solar and for hydro, and of course, also looking at opportunities for utilizing water for farming and farm worker housing at the same time. So we need to really look at our water source and how to best manage that, take care of it, and then divert with responsibility to assure that we can offer opportunities for bigger picture farmers, big opportunities county-wide, and manage our rivers and streams at the same time. So that's my mana'o on that.
Mahalo, Bernard. Next up to answer is Mason Chalk.
Aloha mai kākou, Mason Chalk ko inoa, wailua nui aho anu mai au, moko opuna, mahalo kupuna, nao makua. A ditto to everything that was said above. Some really great answers, and I want to just say, if we can't all get onto council like was said earlier, but we can usher these ideas forward, and I look forward to us working on it because there's no other option for us to do so. We have to advance these great ideas. Like many of you, I believe we need to reserve ag for ag and ensure access to ag land. We also need to, like was said earlier, to support critical infrastructure, provide water, access to water, to provide processing, storing, distribution for our farmers. We need to improve local food independence through regenerative agriculture, permaculture design. Support our local farmers, helping them build their own businesses, connecting them to consumers and retailers such as restaurants, the distribution opportunities, provide trainings, workshops, seed banks, and libraries. So much to do. 2 years ago, we expanded on the current farmers market. I love to see those things actually come into play. Some talked about the SNAP benefits. I'd love to see that expanded also, come back in a sustainable way for our farmers market, but also connect local restaurants who are using local products. Of course, support hemp production for new goods, Kauai made, value-added products. We need to ramp these products up. This is how we can survive in agriculture. I would love to work on some tax benefits for our farmers. Exempt kalo production. We are the center of the universe for kalo production in Hanalei and across our aina. So why not provide the exemptions for them? We can and we should revise our ag dedication program. Farm worker housing, something so important. We already can provide dormitory style housing under our current code. We need to expand on that, get it started. I would love to see even a commission of local farmers, the professionals being the ones to guide the farm worker housing permitting. But also we need to, farmers need to be able to access their farms. They need the security of their farms intact. And so we need to provide as much opportunity for them to be on their land, on their property. Someone talked about the roadside vending. That's also a great thing that the council can do. And I think we should do that right away. Ag tourism has been discussed. I'll go to the water issue. We need to get our stakeholders together. We need them to work together. We need to install in-stream flow meters, permit process to approve and ensure that equal access as well as equal maintenance. And that can only happen through regional watershed management plans, everybody. Once we get that established, we can manage better, okay? Composting, mulching programs in every community. And of course, support organizations like Aina Ho'okupo, Kilauea, and Common Ground, their Innovation Food Center. These are models that we can duplicate. Mahalo.
Next up to speak is Richard Fukushima. Richard, are you on right now? Richard was on earlier, but then dropped off.
Jesse, it does not look like he was able to come back on.
Okay, so the next up to answer is Felicia Cowden.
Aloha, Felicia Cowden here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, so everybody has said so many wonderful things, and I'm really honored to be in with a group of people who have added so many important points, and being one of the last, I'm just going to bring up some fresh ones, but I agree with much of what has been said. So I think that it's a really important thing to separate food production necessarily from being seen as a commodity. Several people have said, 90% of our food is imported. I want to add a nuance to that, which is 90% of the food that pays general excise tax is imported. But there's a whole lot of food that is produced that doesn't produce general excise tax, so isn't counted. And I think that we need to really honor the range of food production so that we look at each of our types, whether we've heard about like our ag park, which is a block down the street from me, and I'm over there regularly and have a deep interest in that process. What hasn't been mentioned is our food forest that's also up here in Kilauea. And that's 2.5 acres, and we basically share out all that living seed bank of seed and vegetative starts of island adapted seed. That means that it is meant to grow here. And like even because Billy showed some of his stuff, like this ulu and this papaya, this is just what I grabbed off my tree before I came in for this talk. I have 3 ulu right there that I'll just put in the oven and then share out with my friends because I can't possibly eat it. I live in a garden full of food that is grown on ambient conditions. I don't have to water it. I don't have to bring anything in there. So something that I haven't heard yet is it's really important to choose what crops that we make popular in the restaurants, how we brand our awareness of what we eat. If we choose to eat things that grow in Ohio or someplace in the continent, as opposed to the crops that are meant to grow here, you grow them here, they grow like a bad weed. And I think that we need to be encouraging, you know, our hunters, our fishermen, our ranchers. Like, how do we not criminalize our hunters? They bring food home for their families and friends. There's a lot of other elements to the whole food mosaic. Certainly, the small gentleman farms, if they're growing food, it counts. When we look at food that's produced that makes it to a table somewhere as opposed to what yields $1, I think, seconds. Pardon me?
20 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, well, okay, so much more to say. Managing our water, I guess like in that case, ambient conditions, we can grow food that doesn't need so much water. Farm workers need to be able to be on the properties. That's just an essential piece, and humble little places, but to ranch and grow diversified crops, people need to be able to live near their food. Thank you so much, everybody, for all the great ideas.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Next up to answer is Addison Bulasan.
Aloha kako, I'm Dr. Addison Bulasan, your Kauai County Council candidate. I want to start by saying thank you to our organizers, Community Coalition of Kauai, for hosting this. I want to thank all the candidates who jumped on and jumped into the race to want to make Kauai better and help each other. And I especially want to thank all of the viewers who are watching right now, all 104 people watching live right now. This means a lot to me that you decided to be on right now to learn about all of us, but more importantly, to work together to solve some of our challenges. So the question is, what would I do to grow Kauai's agricultural economy and increase the island's food sustainability? The best part about being last right now is knowing that there is so many great ideas to execute. So then now the question would be, why aren't we doing it? And a lot of it is really showing up as a leader in our county council legislation and working together with all of you to solve some of these challenges. The challenge about one of these things, solving these agricultural challenges, is about getting people to come together. And so we learned really quickly in COVID-19 that we can adapt, and that our farmers and agricultural people can adapt to the situation. And we saw how a lot of people went to CSAs and local farmers markets and direct to consumers. So I want us to encourage our farmers and keep supporting them, and especially our nonprofits who are working together right now, like Kilauea Ag Park that we talk about, but we haven't mentioned about Waipa Foundation and the work that they're doing with Kamehameha Schools. Shout out to Dr. Natalie Kuroshima, who's helping create systems so we can create more food production. We haven't talked about Malama Kauai. We haven't talked about Monkey Paw Jam, who is directly working with farmers and doing all the good work. The last one I wanted to talk about in this category is what the work of Senator Kochi is doing, and this is where my vision comes for ag and for food, really. This is the main thing about what we're talking about, is making sure that we have local products going to local people here on the island. And so I support the vision of wanting to make sure that we get more local products to local people. I hold the vision that by 2022, I hope we can use up to 80% local ingredients for everything that we serve in our institutions, that's in our hospitals, that's in our schools, and that's in our larger systems that allow us to help more people. So when we talk about food sustainability, we need to look at the whole production from the farmer to the end user. And so in my ideas and the thoughts that I'm looking to bring, my hope is that we can work more with everyone, especially the state, land, and private owners, so we can be more collaborative and get these ideas done. And that's one of the challenging parts, and I'm really looking forward to making that happen. So I want to thank all the community leaders, all our local experts for reaching out and allowing me to talk with you and find out how ways we can solve some of these challenges.
Mahalo, Addison. To wrap up this round, next to answer is Clint Iago. I think you're still muted as of yet, Clint. Clint, let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? You're still muted. Try again. Clint, can you hear me?
I think he can hear you.
You can hear me. It's your turn to answer the question on food sustainability and agriculture. You just got to unmute yourself on the Zoom meeting. Okay, I cannot hear you right now.
Kuya, do you have somebody with you who could help unmute?
Unless somebody, I don't know if David or yourself, Juno, can.
Technically, I can click unmute, but he'll have to accept the unmute.
I tried that too. On the lower left part of your screen, there's a mute button, a mute spot. If you press it, it'll unmute you. Clint.
Try it again. We can't unmute you. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. It's your turn to.
Oh, sorry.
Jenna.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. Thank you, Jesse. Community Coalition. Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing tonight's forum. Awesome forum. Bless the candidates. Clint Iago Sr. If I elected, helping families getting into more farming individually for all to provide natural resources to feed their families, cheap and expensive. Taking a look at the market being affordable today than it was in the previous years, knowing that houses, condos, land is starting to gain momentum, opening to all for the public to afford. I believe each farmer should have rainwater catchment, like first time I say in first forum, a divine catchment. It's a reuse tank, gravity flow that feed the cattle, the best plants, and balance out the shortage of stream water, and also help store the project stream channels from natural weather related to human activities. Damage to help INA bring back stream working condition for current and future families and the farmers. Thank you very much.
Hello, Clint, and thank you to all the candidates for your thoughtful answers. I'm going to hand the forum over to Juno for the next question.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you all candidates. Our second question is about reopening tourism on Kauai. The question is, how do you envision Kauai's future economy in contrast to its pre-COVID economy? Do you think that the island can be opened to tourism safely? How? And what are your views, if any, on how we can address tourism and find other sources of jobs to sustain Kauai? Our first candidate to answer the question is Addison Bulasan.
Aloha kako, this is Dr. Addison Bulasan, your Kauai County Council candidate. I'm so happy to be answering this question first because I was second to last in the last one. Well, I envision a Kauai economy that has a balance of economic engines such as agriculture, local businesses, and then looking at what has happened in COVID, there's a massive opportunity in looking at global industries such as e-commerce, work from home jobs, technology, and manufacturing. It's amazing to see all of our local businesses innovate in these times, especially how hard it is for some of the businesses I've been working with through the Rice Street Business Association and the Lihui Business Association. I mean, the biggest thing that we want to look at right now is in any challenge, in any disaster, in any thing that we go through, there's always opportunity for growth and opportunity for us to expand and become better. And we learn in our county systems, in our home systems, and in our business systems that we can become more efficient, and that's what I'm looking forward to helping with. The question about can we open up the island or open up tourism safely? I believe we can. I like the work that the three doctors and Joanne Yukimura has put together. I read that report and has been in touch with all of these professionals. And I believe what they presented is something that we can implement right now if we can find the resources to put this in place and make sure Kauai is safe. You know, as a healthcare professional, health is on the top of my list. And, you know, the biggest way that we can solve these challenges is by working together, finding local experts like they did, and implementing these ideas as fast as possible so we can protect ourselves and, more importantly, so we can grow and keep our people safe and healthy. Now, the last question was, what is my views and how can we address tourism and find other sources of job to sustain Kauai? And like I mentioned before, there is a massive opportunity right now. I constantly talk to other people in my generation and the generation that is upcoming that are looking at new jobs and working new industries and want to keep innovating, and we just gotta make a space for them to thrive. And so I'm really thankful for all of you for being on this and enjoying our time together to solve these problems. I hope anyone in the community, if you have new ideas, please reach out because I'd love to talk story with you and collaborate so we can solve these challenges. Mahalo.
Our next candidate to answer is Mason Chalk.
Aloha. Thank you for the question. And thank you, Just Transition, Kauai Community Coalition or Coalition Community of Kauai. You know, I think everyone is very clear that we can do better in this experience that we're going through right now. I don't know anyone who has enjoyed the previous traffic congestion and the lifestyle that we've experienced being overtaxed on Kauai. And so there is more that we can do, and we want to regrow or rebuild better than we have in the past. And that will require us to really diversify, to be very flexible and creative in building a circular economy, one that we can all feel very connected to our values and how it is we see our future for our kids, especially. You know, a lot of the work is beginning right now. I want to highlight what the Kauai Economic Recovery Strategy teams and their recommendations have started. But there are other organizations, the Aina Aloha Economic Futures Group that is having workshops just on this specific topic. I think we need to collectively come together and figure out what are the priorities that are surfacing that we can all invest in. It'll take a lot of the kind of things that we're doing right now as we are speaking, which is this telecommunication. And I think that if we build upon that, more opportunities will arise. But we need to get used to this new paradigm of communication, and we need to become efficient in order to do business across the world. It is a moving target, I think, as it relates to opening and being safe. However, I think tourism will continue to be somewhat of a base here, but we can do it better. We can do it with quality tourism. We can do it with managing our tourists better, all right? But in order to do that, we need to be deemed as the safest place in the world to want to visit. And it'll not only keep us safe, but it'll keep the visitors who want to come respectful and wanting to be here to protect us as well. How does that happen? I have also been following our local doctors, their proposals. And I think whatever the outcome is, because it is somewhat of a moving target, it has to be the most stringent that we can possibly make it to protect ourselves. And from there, I think, we can expand on just about any direction we want to. The kind of jobs that I look forward to supporting are definitely, again, adaptive to the growing situation that we're in. The Rise to Work programs, the reinstatement of the Citizens Conservation Corps, these are great avenues for us to build on infrastructure of emerging industries, agriculture, as we talked about, renewable energy. But we need the infrastructure like public broadband in order to expand some of these emerging industries. So I look forward to everyone working together to rebuild this economy, but do it in the safest possible way. Mahalo.
Our next candidate to answer is Victoria Frank.
Thank you very much. As far as reopening our economy, or reopening tourism, we really don't have a choice because we are dependent on the visitor industry. That's just a way of life here. It is the backbone of our economy. That being said, there have been several plans that have been suggested, like Addison was saying, different studies and things that have been done of ways that we can be able to reopen safely. I know a lot of people feel comfortable with pre-testing before visitors come in. That's great. I know I have a friend that's traveling right now to California in Bora Bora, and she is having to do that while she's in California before she leaves for Bora Bora. She didn't have to do it when she left here, but she will have to do it when she comes back, probably. Anyway, I think that is a very valuable option for us as far as testing. I know a lot of visitors would not be likely to come if they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. That just doesn't, that doesn't set well with people when they're trying to go on a vacation. Now, as far as that goes, that being said, we need to make a plan and just do it. We can sit and talk and talk and talk, but if we're not implementing the plans that we come up with, it's just talk. Nothing's being accomplished. Because of the logistics with geographical limitations, we don't have a lot of alternatives as far as like major manufacturing companies or anything like that coming in. But I think that we could enlarge in the areas of technology and in agriculture, like we said before. We could enlarge the technology center in Waimea. We can actively pursue businesses that would be willing to relocate their headquarters here. Like there have been several companies from Silicon Valley area that have relocated to other areas in the Midwest, and people are just transitioning there to get out of some of those more urban areas. And I think we could do that. We could actively pursue some companies that would be willing to bring their headquarters here to provide jobs and to provide opportunities for our people.
20 seconds. Good.
Our next candidate, Jade Waialeale Batad.
Aloha. Did I unmute myself? Aloha. So the island cannot be reopened without risks. And the risks to our citizens, first responders, and our healthcare sector must be minimized. Once mainland states have gained some control over their outbreaks, then we can carefully reopen with strict temporary controls on behavior, on mandatory mask rules, and a testing protocol. I defer to public health experts on how we would set that up. As we have seen in our country, if the political leadership strays too far from public health advice, then we suffer severe consequences. During this pandemic, tourism will be different than it used to be. There must be measures to protect our community. Some visitors may need to be restricted to resort properties until they can be cleared of possible infection. Our island residents who work on these locations will need adequate protective gear. Some visitor activities can probably proceed with masking, distancing, and sanitation rules in place. We can do this, but we need to do it carefully. Masks are our new normal, and they're important. Your mask protects me, and my mask protects you. What does our economy look like in the future? I'm hoping that we have a thriving tech sector with robust island-wide high-speed internet access so that our residents can work from home and that our kids, our keiki, can do distance learning from their homes, that everybody would have access to the internet capabilities that they need. I would like new policies in place to aggressively encourage agriculture for both local consumption and export. And this includes measures to ensure that our inter-island shipping companies are healthy. I've had the blessed opportunity of being part of a live stream on Aloha Aina economic futures. And it was profound. It was so interesting. And Mehana Vaughn was the speaker last night. And I love some of the things that they talk about are circular economy, innovative, creative economic endeavors, environmentally friendly work, regenerative businesses for meaningful work and livable wages. I mean, you know, obviously they're doing the work and putting forth a plan together through amazing people from our Aina. And the whole concept of it is to move forward with a plan that loves our Aina, that loves our land. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Kupa'a Kauai. I had the opportunity to go on a walk and talk with Nalani Waibrun from our Kauai Economic Office at the county. And, you know, I was just so grateful to have been able to impart some of her wisdom and to understand how we're going to move forward. You know, tourism is definitely something that we have in place, and it's definitely going to be our you know, economy moving forward. We're not getting rid of tourism. We just need to re-engineer it to a way that has controls so that our island no longer suffers from over tourism. Thank you. Mahalo.
Our next candidate is Bernard Carvalho.
Aloha. Unmute myself.
All good.
Okay. Again, very important subject matter here with our tourism. First of all, addressing our COVID-19, I want to really mahalo our mayor and what he's done so far in staying firm and assuring that the health and safety of our people is at the forefront. So that was number one. And now as we move into the possibility or moving into opening our island to our visitors, which is very important. Tourism is a very important part of how we live, how we function as an island, as a state. And many of our families work in the visitor industry. But more importantly is how do we welcome the visitor back to our island, and from the airport when they arrive, from that point to the hotel where they're going to be staying, and then from the hotel to where they're going to be visiting. You know, just kind of taking it one step at a time, just talking off the top to work that whole part out and how we're going to manage that collectively. And that's a big part of how to visit our island, and transportation is a big part. I know that we talked about how is our visitors of tomorrow, if you will, travel our island and be able to transport them from one point to the other. I know that we talked about shuttle services happening down into Hanalei area. The way you're going to visit our North Shore is via shuttle. The way you're going to visit many parts of our islands via shuttle. How do we maintain our sustainable movement? There's a whole movement in how we want to manage our island and to make it more sustainable. And then at the same time, finding the respect between the visitor and of course the resident, and finding that balance so we can move forward, so we can offer opportunities for our families to have employment in the visitor industry and at the same time find a balance with the visitor, and that respect that is so important. I know the Kauai Tourism Strategic Plan. I mean, that's a document that is already in place. Everybody's talking about different, looking at different sources of information. But if you look at the Kauai Tourism Strategic Plan, it's all there. And we need to look at that because it ties into the general plan as well. I've looked at it again, and I think there's a lot of areas that we can look at and talk about and bring to the forefront and educate ourselves collectively per the tourism plan. And of course, working closely with Sukanoho and the Kauai Visitors Bureau and trying to implement and assure that the visitor has a wonderful experience. But at the same time, our residents know that we have the ability to control and to monitor and to better serve. So everybody at the end has a wonderful experience on our island. So that's important as we continue to open our doors, welcome our visitors, but make sure that our people are safe and the health and wellness of our island is safe, and the state sustainable movement is moving in a direction to ensure that we have that opportunity to keep everybody healthy and strong. So that would be my mana'o for this particular question. Aloha.
Our next candidate is Jacqueline or Jackie Nelson.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the short answer to this question is yes, we can reopen safely. We have to. It's our highest priority. We've been shut down for what, 4 months now? No one saw this coming. Solutions need to be innovative and collaborative. If I can use one of Addison's favorite words, collaborative. The council isn't going to have all the answers. Mayor Kawakami is not going to have all the answers. And bailouts that some people are receiving the benefits of, you know, state and federal funding, they're not really the answer, because ultimately who funds those? Those are funded by tax revenue. So that's you and me, you know. Speaking as someone whose income has been significantly decreased since late February, Kauai residents can't afford to pay more and higher taxes down the road. So we need to engage the business community. And by business community, you know, we are tourism centered here. So even businesses that, you know, aren't necessarily, they don't rely on tourism, well, they rely on customers, and those customers are largely employed by the tourism industry. So we need to engage the entire business community, start a dialogue, ask them what they need in order to thrive post-COVID. How do they need to modify their business models to make them pandemic-proof moving forward? And we really need to listen. So primarily, this means just fostering a business-friendly environment. The best solutions are going to be business-centered and government-supported. And just the residents of Kauai, you know, going about their daily lives, fulfilling their needs, pursuing their dreams in a free market system, that's going to resuscitate our economy. And that's what's going to bring us back. One thing that most people agree on when I talk to them is that COVID-19 isn't going to be a one and done thing. You know, on the other side of this, we're not going to be like, oh, great, we got through this, now back to business as usual. Everything is going to be changed a bit on the other side. But we do need to get reopened. And we do need to know that tourism will always be central to our economy. In order to come back, our business owners need to know that they won't be encountering a bunch of new or higher taxes. They're not going to be hit with a bunch of revenue sucking regulations.
3 seconds, Jackie.
I do hear from them a lot, oh, I can reopen, but I don't know if I can afford to stay open. I guess I'll just summarize here. I would say no new taxes, defer GET and perhaps even licensing payments to help keep some money in the business pockets, expand business boundaries and reimagine zoning so that people can do more with home-owned businesses.
Time is up.
Give clear directives and enact reform to protect businesses from lawsuits. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Felicia Cowden.
All right. Well, I think this COVID event has really provided an opportunity for us to frame a reset and how we want to redirect our model for how we welcome our visitors. It's really could be a very big blessing. I know it's been extremely difficult for people. Tourism has grown to be our #1 economy naturally. It's like water running downhill. It's very easy for people to want to come here. So what we need is the balance, because while the virus is increasing and intensifying in these locations that send us most of our visitors, we have to be really, really careful, because it would be reckless to remove the quarantine and the testing requirements. But on the other hand, I recognize how devastating holding, this long time without visitors, it's economically devastating to many of our businesses, both large and small. So what comes to my mind as we start to reopen to visitors is I would like us to really be branding on the clean, green, and safe, and really enriched on our Hawaiian heritage and how we bring our visitors here. There are many visitors here that are still here since Christmas. There are those high-end visitors who really have that capacity. And I think if we start to rebrand Kauai as the safe place to go, that what we can get is people who are coming for a month or two, and that they are willing to take that week at the beginning, and they're willing to do a test. And part of what they get when they come here is to know that they're coming to a place where they can be relaxed, where they don't go places where people are really frightened to have them. And I think that it's possible, and it fits in with our agriculture dreams and ideas, that if what we do with our small businesses is we start living that dream that people are looking for, is how do we do things locally based? How do we do it resilient? So I feel that we can shift our branding and bring that there. And for the other elements of how we can base things, again, we need to be doing more of these locally based businesses, especially as we look at our shipping companies who are wanting to increase rates to now 47%. That's crazy high. Maybe they need to do it. What does that mean? It means that we need to be creating more of our products here. So everything from soaps to shampoos to jams to building materials, I think there's all kinds of ways that we can brand ourselves up and market, even export market what we have as a Kauai friendly way, of clean products. And it's been brought up with the remote and virtual work. I think that that's a natural tendency where we are going anyway. So right now, people who move here are very good at making their income that way. We got to figure out a way to raise our people here to know how to play that same role and be able to have moderate middle-class lifestyles like what we see of the people who move here. Here, our own people are struggling.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Kipukai Kuali'i.
Our future economy will be reliant on some form of tourism, but also on government assistance, especially in the next year or two. I believe governments need to take a cuts last approach, where they're keeping government employees employed in order to continue providing services to our people and to continue contributing to our economy. Our island can only be open safely if we have medical safeguards in place, such as pre-tests, quarantines, and post-tests. And of course, those must be based on proven medical science, and they must be mandatory for every person arriving on Kauai. Prior to COVID-19, refocusing tourism to find balance was already in our county's 3-year tourism strategic plan from 2019 to 21. And in that, they call for sustainable tourism, and they want all of our resorts and TVRs to green themselves. Calls for improving transportation and alleviating traffic. Of course, we're already working towards a comprehensive multimodal land transportation system. It calls for sustainable management and maintenance of all our parks and trails, with the help from the Hawaii Tourism Authority, as they have shifted their focus too from marketing to management. Calls for employee development to ensure that all visitor industry employees are well qualified to deal with the tourists and to teach them about being a responsible tourist. And then, of course, effective communications with all stakeholders, including visitors. As we work to recover from the COVID public health crisis and the resulting economic crisis, we must also work on the climate change crisis. Here on Kauai, many agree that we must address our carrying capacity for tourism.
20 seconds.
We must address that in order to deal with our traffic, our overcrowding, our overuse of parks and roads, and the deterioration of natural resources and other impacts. We know what it's like with no tourism. The Aina is revitalized. No, the traffic is down. People are not willing to go back. They don't want tourism at all costs. So we must move to a new tourism that is a responsible tourism.
Thank you.
And everybody can work together. Agritourism, ecotourism, cultural tourism. There's so many options.
Right. Our next candidate is Wally Nishimura.
Thank you very much. So, I don't like that tourism is villainized. I worked in tourism. Nothing is wrong with it. A lot of people moved here because they came as visitors. You know, my generation was handed tourism as the main means to work, to make a living. And that it shows a failure of politicians who currently serve in office and those who have since left office. And I'm running because I'm fighting for change that will be seen within my young children's lifetime. I'm 29 years old. I have public and private sector leadership experience. With diversifying our economy, I had mentioned hemp, and that's sitting on Governor Ige's desk. That's going to be a big one. And beyond agriculture, I know we need to support our Pacific Missile Range facility. And I think we should work with our representatives in Washington, D.C. to support an expansion of what they do on its current footprint. They pay a very livable wage at PMRF. And I know this because I used to work security there after I finished my job at the Westin in Princeville. I used to drive from Princeville to Mana'a, back to Anahola to make a living. So I know what it's like to struggle. And as far as securing us with tourism coming back, I believe we need to continue what we do at Lihue Airport on a much more expanded level. I recently came back from Honolulu, and it's a good process. I think people who choose to slip out will slip out and they'll get caught. I think before tourists get on the plane, they should have a pre-flight test. When they get here, they should have a sputum rapid test. I don't know why they haven't put that in place yet. They should. I think they should have had it lined up so we could have been ready to open on August 1st. Along with a reduced capacity at the hotels. In the beginning of COVID, Governor Ige stood there with all the representatives from the tourism industry, airlines, hotels, lodging, and they all came to a consensus on shutting down and reducing flights. We can do the same thing if there's concerns with everybody coming in too quickly with the floodgates, then we can work on a reduced occupancy. I think some hotels that are open are already planning to do that. We need to take action now. We can't keep doing the same thing. You know, in my job, as the Regional Safety Officer for Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, Kauai Region, I work in a hospital. I work at KVMH. I work in Mahilona. I've been part of COVID surge drills, preparing for the worst to care for this island and our people. I want to bring my skills and my trades and what I can offer to the Kauai County Council to move us forward.
Thank you,
I
Wally.
will. Thank you.
Now to repeat the question, just to remind everybody, how do you envision Kauai's future economy in contrast to its pre-COVID economy? Do you think that the island can be opened to tourism safely? How? And what are your views, if any, on how we can address tourism and find other sources of jobs to sustain Kauai? Our next candidate to answer is Mike Danderand.
Hi, aloha. The host is spotlighted. Okay, I'm just reading it. Aloha. So this question, it talks about reopening tourism on Kauai. And, you know, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. We have an opportunity to reevaluate and reinvent and restart our economy. Now, regarding tourism specifically, you know, it talks about pre-COVID economy. Our pre-COVID economy was primarily dependent on tourism. Now, according to the HTA, Hawaii Tourism Authority strategic plan, tourism was increasing, but the money that the tourists were spending were decreasing. And so that, you know, if you think about it, that means we were working harder for less. You know, as recently as 2019, Kauai topped out at over 30,000 visitors a day, driving 10,000 rent-a-cars a day. And you still see them out in the parking lots as we drive by Kmart and what have you. And I panic thinking about those cars getting back on the road again. You know, on the average, 3 out of 10 people on Kauai were tourists back in 2019. So, and you know, the Kauai resident satisfaction, and they had the survey, the quality of life for Kauai residents dropped 17%. And this is from the Hawaii Tourism Authority. So, you know, pre-COVID, we had high volume of tourists, but they weren't spending as much money. And we had low resident satisfaction or low quality of life for Kauai residents. So my future vision for Kauai is not to have a large volume of tourists. I think we should have a better quality of tourists. And we should focus on having our residents' quality of life improved. And we can do this by refocusing the marketing, the paradise marketing that our marketing people do to avoid the budget promotions that are going on. I mean, right now you can get to Kauai for $350 round trip. I mean, what kind of a visitor is that going to bring? And, you know, talking about the visitor and tourism safety, you know, with the information we have today, I feel that when we have accurate and timely testing and contact tracing, that is when it'll be safe to open. And if we do not, as it has already been shown in the mainland, we will be taking 1 step forward, but we'll be taking 3 steps backward. And we'll be putting our island at risk. So in the meantime, I say, let's support and take care of each other. And the bottom line is, let's protect Kauai and our people, and especially our kupuna.
Time's up.
You know, Mason said something about a circular economy, and I agree. Kauai is a special place, and we have a valuable commodity that the world wants, and we need to hold it dear to us.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Harold Kaneshiro is our next candidate to answer.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, you know, we all can agree that this pandemic has definitely showed us how overly dependent we are on tourism for our economic health. So, but, you know, tourism not only supported paying jobs within the hotel industry, it supports complementary businesses such as restaurants, shops, eco adventures, and so many other, and so many more. You know, prior to this pandemic, the tourist industry was putting a major strain on the quality of life of residents. And I think a lot of candidates spoke about that. But I think we can all agree that we need tourism sector to recover and to rebalance itself to be more in line with our community values and our local way of life. That being said, we know the recovery will be long. We had at one time close to 30% unemployment, and many of our local folks are struggling to make ends meet right now. So, you know, we cannot place families in dire economic straits while waiting to diversify our economy. I believe we can have safe tourism on island, but both the traveler, the industry, and our community need to accept adjustments. We may not get the volume we got in the past, but we may benefit from being highly valued for being a safe place. And that's also an economic potential. Being heavily involved in agriculture and with the threats of inter-island shipping capacity swirling, it's even more important that we need to sustain ourselves and harden our food security. We all need to eat. Growing food grows jobs. And I would focus our tradition of agriculture on island and support efforts to feed ourselves given our weak supply chain. Now more than ever, I think is the time to support local business. Local businesses are struggling. And I've stated this before from the very start of my campaign 6 years ago, that we need to be more business friendly. Businesses provide jobs. These jobs provide wages to residents, and these wages allow our residents to survive, put a shelter over their head, and provide the means to afford to live here. And lastly, as a county, we need to leverage our outside state and federal funds to stimulate our economy and improve infrastructure, again, which in turn provides jobs and a means for our local residents to stay employed. Thanks.
Our next candidate to answer is Clint Yago.
Clint Yago Sr. If I elected, I believe that tourism will survive. There's a different ways of all screening, checking, getting checked a few days prior to getting tourists back and attract right patients and time well, keep people coming to visit as tourists, as family, visitors, and business. We just need an extra patience. I believe it's not impossible to do it safely, just needed time, patience, and taking steps following suit of a future for Kauai. How? Checking and screening and patient. My view to bring Kamaina to hotel so can alleviate the SUI and Bill State Senate 126, Section 38, Federal CARES Act. I believe with new creation of job, our people will come together and start taking path to new business ideas to adapt to the new ways of life. Thank you very much.
Our next candidate is Ed Justice.
Okay. Hi. As I was saying earlier, diversifying the economy is absolutely critical. And how we can do that is by bringing back agriculture, because agriculture, not only does that create jobs, but it also creates other economies that are supporting it. Supportive industries, you also have value-added businesses. They're going to add into the economy as well. So tourism is always going to be an important part of Hawaii's economic engine, but it doesn't have to be our sole engine. So, and actually Wally brought up a good point about PMRF, because with Space Force happening, that's going to create a lot more jobs and activity at PMRF, and I think that's something that they could coordinate with college to help create high-paying or create education that would funnel directly to jobs at PMRF. So I think that's a really great opportunity. As far as COVID and how we can reopen, I actually did a flow chart. Okay, so I checked this with a friend of mine who's a virologist just to make sure it was actually functional and workable. And basically how it works is this is what I call my COVID-19 reopening plan phase 1, because reopening tourism is going to have to happen in phases. That's the only way it's going to work. In my business personally, I mean, 60% of my revenue is based in tourism, so I'm feeling it as much as many others are. So the idea is this: you arrive at the airport. Pre-testing has to happen. It's not necessarily effective because the people that get pre-tested, that's 3 days before, and then they get on a plane with people who aren't tested, and then that means they've got 5 hours to get infected, and you're not going to know whether they've actually been contaminated or not for at least another 3 days. So I think what we have to do is make pre-testing mandatory for people who want to come here. And if you're untested or you've tested positive, we cannot have you here. So this is the reopening plan that I'm proposing. That you can arrive at the airport with your negative pre-test. You then have a flight to Hawaii. After you arrive at the airport, you then take, this way. then all the passengers that are on that flight are then loaded through a safety tunnel directly into a quarantine van. From the quarantine van, you go directly to the quarantine hotel. And then from the quarantine hotel, which has its own active testing facility, which is definitely possible through public-private partnerships that can help make that possible. There, you would actually make a required 3 tests occurring no less than 6 days apart. This way, you're not risking possible exposure and infection to our residents here. And after your last test is final and it's negative, congratulations. You get to go out into the community and enjoy the island. But there is a requirement that you have to have contact tracing and check-ins. Now, this is probably going to be the most safest plan, at least according to my friend that's a virologist, that we can ensure that we can bring back tourism, but we can do it without exposing the community unnecessarily to a plan that may or may not actually work.
Our next candidate is Donovan Kabibi.
Aloha. Okay, so once again, mahalo to everybody for tuning in via KKCR and Ho'ike Television, as well as Facebook Live. How do you envision Kauai's future economy? Tourism would be a supplementary thing. I think a solid and strong tech industry, I think providing environmental reclamation as an industry, as we move to replace and reestablish shoreline setbacks and so on, addressing climate catastrophe or changing climate conditions. So definitely looking at environmental sciences as an option for diversification. Communication and technology is huge, and we should invest money in developing those sectors and encouraging investment there. Should tourism ocean open up? Yes, but under Aina-centric philosophies, meaning we have to be environmentally responsible. We have to sell a true image of what Hawaii is instead of this romanticized version that had been traditionally and previously sold to the world. We need to set the highest standard for environmental consciousness, social responsibility, and share those standards with the world. And so as we invite visitors to come to Hawaii, we need to make sure that everybody has a clean bill of health upon arriving, and then go through a screening process once they arrive to ensure that clean bill of health before departure to Hawaii. And we need to make sure that all of the carriers, airline, boats, and so on, exercise the highest standards of cleanliness
20 seconds.
While transporting those people. And then finally, all of this together will contribute to bringing about a safer Hawaii that's marketable, sustainable, and environmentally friendly. Thank you.
Our next candidate to answer is Billy DeCosta.
Hello, everybody. You guys, I'm back on. Can you hear me? Yes?
Can hear you, Uncle.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Can I go ahead? Ready? All right. I would like to say, again, all the candidates are throwing out all the great buzzwords that we need to hear. And I think they have a lot of good suggestions. I do believe our local people love the island the way it is, and holding capacity is a key. I personally and all of the friends and family I spoke to would not want to see our roads and infrastructure get overridden with tourist cars again. So I think the shuttle is the best possible way if we do tend to open up tourism. Opening up tourism, again, It depends on COVID CDC testing, trace testing. 3 days prior to traveling, I believe all of that is in place, and everybody's talking about that. Here's my little light bulb or my crystal ball. I would like to see quarantine areas, not only at the hotel, but the area the hotel is in. So if our tourist does come back and they're testing negative and they're able to stay, but they're not only confined to the hotel, they will be confined to the area where they can walk or bike and have the restaurants and beaches in that area only for their accessibility. Our local workers in the hotel would be decontaminated upon leaving the hotel, leaving their clothing behind to be washed by the hotel. And they would be monitored as far as their family contact back and forth to work and be tested. There is a way to open up tourism. I heard Derek Kawakami mention this, that at a quarantine area, I've had that conversation with him, is very important. Of course, our local residents may not want to go to the beach or the restaurant where our quarantine tourist is, but we would have many more restaurants and beaches to go to that the tourists would not be. How our economy will play a part in this? The vision is to serve locally grown food at the hotel. I think this is the time that we can have our little dairy, goat cheese served at the hotel, our ulu mashed potatoes served at the hotel. How about local beef that is grain-fed? No one talked about that. No one talked about growing grain, corn, barley, oats to grain feed our cattle like a feedlot, or grain feeding our chickens, or even creating a dog food company where our locals can have our local Hawaii grown dog food. How about packaging and exporting food items like plums and bananas and mangoes that's freeze dried at a certified kitchen and a community slaughterhouse? How about having our tourists come to our ag living areas and tour the property on horseback? How about creating agro-tourism where the tourists can come see how sustainable we live? That's the life.
Sorry.
Our next candidate is Ms. Deverlyn Carvero de Silva.
That was a good answer.
Aloha. I see Kauai slowly coming back from this pandemic. Like any other crisis Kauai has encountered, as you all know, we went through Iniki, we went through Eva, if everybody remember Eva, how the communities all came together and helped each other, or whatever the case may be. But as for the tourist industry, Kauai should not rush into opening up until we can get some kind of positive feedback from our government that testing of all individuals has been made with their contact tracers, with their people that are driving them to their hotels, verifying that they are there. I mean, you have them out there that they only call on the phone. It could be anywhere, and you're calling them to check on them, and they're not even in their room or wherever they're supposed to be quarantined at. I also feel that it's Kauai's responsibility to ensure every resident who lives here has been tested under Kauai's costs. We have to show that we care about our residents, for they are the ones that makes Kauai, Kauai. As I have said in the past, that everyone should be able to receive help from our government in rent, food, and basic income till this pandemic passes. You know, I stand with our mayor on all his, forums that he have and his little shows that he have. I also want him to step out of the box of all the mayors and our governor and our government officials, our Department of Health. Jump out of that box and stand for his people. That schools shouldn't even be open for our children, because they're the number ones that's gonna get attacked. Kids don't know how not to play and touch and hang out with their friends or whatever. How are they supposed to control that? That is my thing. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Luke Evslin.
Thank you, Juno. As far as the question of can we reopen tourism safely, I wish we could, right? I hear almost every day just totally crushing stories about friends who had totally successful businesses in January and February who are shutting down. We have federal unemployment benefits that are phasing out or ending at the end of the month, right? We need to get something going, but like unfortunately, we have no good options moving forward, right? As long as the mainland case numbers are looking at like what they are, there's no good solutions, right? The single test method, which Governor Ige, was going to implement at the end of the month, we know that that's going to let through, a quarter of positive COVID patients, right? Because the first 4 days or so that you have the virus isn't going to show up in a test, plus the time to catch it on the airplane, right? That's not a good mechanism. The pre-test on the mainland, and then 6 days later after a quarantine on Kauai and then test again. That's great. I hope that we can do it, but I don't really think it's going to be the answer as far as tourism, right? I hope people, if we can do it, that they'll choose to come and do the quarantine, but I can't imagine people jumping through those hoops, or a whole lot of them. So I think we're going to end up having some version of our quarantine going forward until we have a vaccine, or case numbers on the mainland go down significantly, unfortunately. As far as going forward, post-COVID, I think that, it's pretty clear that we were way over capacity for tourism for a long time pre-COVID, right? And this has hugely negative impacts on our own quality of life, traffic, crowded beach parks, infrastructure impacts, right? We have 1 in 8 homes being used as TVR, so it has housing impacts, and then it has economic impacts also, right? As tourism numbers go up beyond saturation point, per visitor spending goes down, so it's sort of the worst of all worlds. So going forward, right, it's important we don't get back into that same place again, right? Better controls over the growth of tourism. We don't have a whole lot of great policy levers as a county. We do have control over property taxes to try and disincentivize, TVRs or hotel expansion. And we have the ability to charge tourists for parking in beach parks, right? We need to do that. And then, going forward, as far as diversifying our economy in the long run, one is we need to get control over our housing prices. You can't start a business if you're struggling to afford rent. Number two is, lowering some barriers to entry in the market, right? Zoning barriers, more options for working out of your home. Number three is carrying forward the idea of, buy local, the circular economy that we've been talking about all night. And then lastly, the biggest economic opportunity we have is in green energy infrastructure, right? If we have the goal, which the state does, of net zero carbon emissions by 2045, that's the biggest economic opportunity there is, because it means totally transforming our economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your candid answers. And we're almost there. Our last question will be with Jesse. So Jesse, back to you.
Thank you so much, Juno. I just wanted to say that for the sake of time, so that we can all get back to our lives, and so that Luke can celebrate some amount of his anniversary, we're going to keep this last round of questions to 2 minutes. I apologize because there's so much more to say. The question is this. I'm also not going to repeat the question, so this is the one time I'll state it. The question is this. Plan to develop Lihue Town Center with 2,800 plus units, as well as Kalaheo Town Walkable District and Koloa Town Walkable District. Since approval of these plans, a bill has been introduced that exempts these and developments of 10 residential units or more per acre from the housing ordinance affordability requirements. What is your view on this proposed exemption? If developers are given an exemption from affordability, where will Kauai's affordable housing come from? What potential is there for county-acquired distressed properties and abandoned buildings to be converted to affordable housing? The first to answer this question is Deborah Lynn Da Silva Carrero. Please go ahead, Deborah. You're on, Deborah Lynn. The answer, it's your turn, and yeah, I think you're now unmuted.
I believe no one should be exempt on our safety. Codes are put into place for a reason. If we were to have a hurricane, who would be responsible because of lack of structure? Also, we should always have a clause in any developer's agreement that a person should be affordable regardless. Without affordable housing, we'll have a more increased homeless situation. I believe that they could take mats and containers and, redo them so it could be shelters for the people that is living out there on our beach, which is making it look disgusting, for one thing. So we should have a place for everybody to be living in. Kauai is based on the saying, we take care of our people. What message will this be telling our residents? that they're just part of a business that Kauai has adapted. With that being said, we have our share of abandoned and commercial buildings that the county could take up. You know, they could convert them into shelters or even county-owned properties to rent and get some income back into our budget. That is my thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah Lynn. Next up to answer is Billy DaCosta.
Hello, Jesse. How are you?
Good, thank you, Billy.
Yeah. I believe affordable housing is a very must here on the island. At the same time, we need to encourage developers with an incentive for them to build those affordable housing. And I believe in the last 10 years, we had very minimal affordable housing. Demand and supply are key. If there is an ample supply of homes, the price does go down. If there's no supply, the price goes up. And I believe that we need affordable housing, and there's other partnerships that we can incorporate with the county, floating bonds, with state, private sectors, and we can get more public housing done. I believe Grow Farm has advocated and has done public housing, but there are other large landowners on the island that we did not go and solicit. How many of you council members or state representatives have spoken to the Robinson family on the west side? A lot of plantation families made that family a very wealthy family as far as land rich. How about seeing them if they were willing to do affordable housing unit on the west side to take care of those so-called workers that we're gonna have come over with the increase of technology or with the base, like Mr. Wally said about the current jobs. So with that being said, I believe that public housing is important. Developers need an incentive. And I believe that the Kaleo and Koloa area, there's no room for big homes to be built. So it's not gonna attract the multimillionaire to build a very large home. Those affordable units will be there for people to and from their community they live in, walk to work. Just like how tourists should bike to the restaurant and bike to the beach. No need rent-a-cars. Thank you. You never unmute me this time. Thank you.
Mahalo, Billy. Thank you so much. Next up is Wally. Wally Nishimura.
Thank you, Jesse. First, I didn't support the bill as it was written. I know it went back, and you guys are going to work on it. I appreciate you guys doing it. I know you guys mean the best. I personally don't think it's a good idea to trust a developer that they'll build something affordable if they don't have to. Kauai won't have affordable housing if it's not required. An idea I like to do is I like to work with the planning department and pull out an old approved development similar to what Ho'oluana is in Hanamalu and see how we can make that work. Distressed properties also will still cost money. You know, the county puts them up. They can fit one family, one house, one apartment. I don't see that making a really big impact for the need. If it's there and it's available, sure. Unfortunately, there's a lot of closed spaces of businesses that have shut down and left. You know, it'd be unfortunate to see it just go away. I think if it can be repurposed to affordable housing, that'd be a good idea. One of the biggest things I think everybody needs to support, especially running for council, regardless if it's not in our oversight, is Hawaiian homeland. It has been underfunded, undersupported for way too long. And the lawsuit that was recently brought up proves that. You know, people love Hawaii, then support Hawaiians. Lower the blood quantum to quarter. First of all, give everybody who is 50% one house. Lower the blood quantum to quarter to get it. Keep my generation in Hawaii on Hawaiian land. Vote Wally Nishimura for Kauai County Council. Vote WallyNishimura.com. I'll bring honor, respect, and integrity back to government. I humbly ask for your vote.
Hello, Wally. Next up is Mike Danran.
All right, aloha. So the question is housing and affordability, and we're talking about the recent proposal. The Affordable Housing Initiative or Incentive Plan back in 2008 netted us 0 affordable homes. And now in 2020, council is again trying to entice developers to build Kauai in the Kauai's town's core by making it less restrictive. And we're trying to create more housing on Kauai in the hopes that more supply will create lower prices overall, and we will all benefit. And I get it, and it makes sense. My question is, do we have any developers that are interested in this new plan? You know, I feel the incentive is to make it less expensive to build. If the cost is less, then we can sell the home at 80 or 100 AMI, and the developer still makes a profit. Now, how do we do this? We build up by allowing taller structures only in the town centers. Developers can use economies of scale to reduce their costs, making units less expensive, more affordable. And by doing this, we also protect our green space, and we prevent urban sprawl. And before I'm going to run out of time, I do want to talk about a couple of inspirational stories. Leah P, she's a single mom, had a successful cleaning business for 5 years, and she's now facing eviction. She opened Kickstarter account to fund her new small business, Aloha Pepper. Also opened a GoFundMe page under Keep Kauai Going to help fund not her business, but other small businesses that are struggling. She's a fighter and she's a giver. Ashley V, a professional wedding photographer, no wedding business now. So what did she do? She opened up an online magazine to help other wedding vendors survive. Ashley taught swimming in high school, and now she teaches swimming lessons to Kauai's keiki and also works delivering meals to Kauai residents. Like diversifying our economy, we as individuals need to diversify and share our skills and our talents. We all have life skills, something that we're good at, and now is the time. Let's not sit on our hands and wait for help. Let's go out and give it and receive it. And I ask every resident to continuously support local business. If you have the money, share it. If you don't, ask for it. We can get through this, Kauai, together. Thank you. Vote Mike Dandaran. Aloha.
Thank you, Mike. Next up is Kipukai Koli'i.
Aloha. So affordable housing has been a top priority for a long time. Our crisis is getting worse and demands action. That's why under my leadership as the Housing Committee Chair, this current council has been working on Bill 2774 since January. The bill is a package of 30 or so proposed amendments to update and improve the county's housing policy in order to support the building of more affordable homes and rentals. My view of the bill and its proposed changes is it's necessary if we're serious about addressing affordable housing. The housing policy has and will continue to have an initial 30% workforce housing assessment for housing projects of 10 or more units, most everywhere on the island. Our bill proposes partial exemptions or special assessments only for multifamily workforce housing developments in specific planning areas like Lihue, Koloa, and Kalaheo, and in special R10 zoned lands, meaning 10 or more units per acre, which again is mostly located in the greater Lihue area. To note, the forecasted need for housing units in Lihue alone is nearly 5,000 units. So for the specific areas affected, builders are no longer assessed the 30% workforce housing assessment, but instead are assessed a multifamily workforce housing assessment for the entire project at the 120% medium income level or lower. So what you're giving up the 30% of projects units at 120%, 100%, and 80% medium income levels. And in exchange, you're getting 100% of the project at 120% medium income or lower.
You can put up my windows to my diesel truck.
I'm not clear, what the potential is for county-acquired projects and distressed properties and abandoned buildings, but I would like to see us. We're building entire projects for low-income and affordable housing. There's buildings in place already, so if we can take abandoned buildings and convert them into affordable housing projects, that would be awesome. And I'm actually I have a plan to meet, I have a scheduled meeting with the administration to talk further about that. So my thoughts too about that is.
That was time. Next up is Donovan Kavivi.
Aloha. How is everybody? Thank you for tuning in. High density development in our urban centers is key. Stopping urban sprawl and those city centers from taking up valuable ag land and wild spaces is essential. I do not support the bill that's going through county council giving anybody any kind of exemptions, but would instead rather see incentives given to developers to keep affordable housing as part of the program. I'd like to see the county develop more public housing, and I'd like to see the county partner with the state to take care of our multi-generational residents, especially those of Hawaiian descent. We have to stop the diaspora of people leaving Hawaii who are connected to Hawaii and understand what the true meaning of aloha is. No Hawaiians, no Hawaii as we know it today or in the past. So, diversify our housing so that anybody and everybody who wants to come here has the opportunity to contribute to preserving what is Hawaii, but not without taking care of our local families first. And that's all I got to say about that.
Mahalo, Donovan. Next up is Mr. Clint Yago Sr. Go ahead, Clint.
Thank you, Jesse. Clint Yago Sr. Affordable housing is like baking a cake. You need flour, sugar, and ingredients. Affordable housing is a three core. You need land, finance, and infrastructure. So the best way to have affordable housing in Kauai is Lihui. Municipal system, there's infrastructure, and yes, I agree on the current plan of the building code. No change right now is necessary. The bill we will be opening up more housing in Lihui Grove Farm, contiguous housing municipal. Yes, I believe it is possible that it can be done on acquiring more abandoned buildings and distressed properties to sue it more affordable housing for all. Please vote for Clint Yago. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Clint. Next up is Jackie Nelson.
Okay, am I unmuted?
I hear you.
Thank you. So the short answer to the question is that these edits to the bill, as I understand them, I would say I'm mostly opposed. I think that they need some more work. Building's a big deal here, where we have limited land that's buildable. We have to be prudent with our decisions. And with affordable housing so limited on Kauai, I just have to say that I oppose these edits in their current form. But we are making some strides in the right direction. But in general, we're making it so hard for working class folks to stay here, and so hard for kids born here to see a future here. And I know this because I used to employ a lot of high school kids. And there's always a lot of talk about making the island better for the keiki when it comes to environmental measures, but I rarely hear this applied when it comes to creating an affordable housing future for the next generation. And that's just very important, investing in people. Kauai residents need affordable housing, period. And if I'm understanding these edits correctly, there's like a 30% affordable housing thing going on here. We don't need 30% affordable housing. We need people who live and work here to be able to afford to buy a home, not only pay their mortgage, but pay their taxes and maintain it and pass it on to the next generation. Also, I don't think that these edits are looking far enough into the future. They're talking like 10, 20 years into the future. We need to be looking way further than that into the future anytime we put a shovel in the ground. And I kind of agree with Wally also. I mean, these distressed properties, sure, we can make use of some of them. They're not going to solve our problems. We might get some creative, fun housing out of it, but that's really not the solution. We need to invest in our neighborhoods, and investing in affordable housing means that we're going to be spending less money down the road on things like drug prevention programs, before and after school programs. We spend a lot of money on houseless people and programs, and it'd be better to spend that money up front and invest in our neighborhoods. So I guess to summarize, I would say the 30% solution is not enough.
So sorry, Jackie, that was time. Thank you so much, Jackie. Next up is Felicia Cowden.
Hi. So I want to start by saying that this bill has already been substantially amended. So the starting question is a little bit off point, but what we have right now is a really dynamic time to be building this housing policy. We don't know what direction we're going to be going in relative to the pandemic and what the area median income will be in the future. I've spoken with realtors from the North, West, South, Central District, talked to developers, worked with one of my favorite groups. It's called Permanent Affordable Living, because that's really what we need to be able to actually achieve on different ideas. And the core goal is that we need to create policy that's going to actually work for the people that live here already. When we talk about supply and demand, we have almost an inexhaustible amount of demand. And I think what we're seeing is a national race to rural. I was talking with the financial institutions that are making these mortgages, and people are coming sight unseen, moving in already regularly with their families, coming over, getting away from where there is the challenge of the virus in other places and when there's been rioting in different communities. So we really need to be very, very careful that what we aren't just doing is building affordable houses for people from somewhere else. When we look at building affordable by design, that is a really critical way of helping to keep these costs small, to keep them light. Right down there in Lihue, that's between the two largest employers, which is the county and the hospital. There's a lot that we have to do, and it's really a race against the clock in trying to figure out this out. We've got plenty of different ideas. FeliciaCowden.com, and I appreciate the vote that's gotten me into council for my first term. Thank you so much, and I'd love to have a second one. Thank you.
All of Felicia. Next up is Bernard Carvalho.
Yes, aloha. Just wanted to hit on some of the projects that are already in place and been completed. Kolopu in Princeville, which is workforce housing. We have, of course, Kaneko'o and Lihue, which is housing for senior and elderly to age in place. It's already completed. We have Pualoki, which is coming up, which is happening right now. Kauai, they're accepting applications in Koloa, which is another workforce housing projects. Limaola, the first green affordable housing project that is happening for multi-family, single-family use. And of course, Waimea Huakai. So we have projects in place. This particular amendment or ordinance part deals with the town core development, and like how we're doing the Lihue town core, connected, walkable, bikeable, complete streets, safe routes to school, all of it tied into this kind of setting within the town core. And so my understanding of this bill is to offer opportunities there in the town core. It's specific to that area, the density of building flooring levels only, and looking at tying into the Kauai Kako, which is the general plan update. The update of our general plan was done in 2018. So we have the document that went through numerous discussions, community meetings, ups and downs and back and forth, but all of it was completed and done, the general plan update, which includes the opportunity to look at the town core type of building and opportunities there, similar to like we're doing in Lihue. And I think that has been a big movement positive movement, not to mention the walkable, bikeable, the multimodal walking path, which has been used over and over and over again. So I think we got to really understand the overall picture of this particular ordinance and see how it ties in specifically to down core. And we can still move ahead with other projects that are not in the down core area and offer opportunities there. So I look forward to offering more opportunities there and to discuss the more bigger picture. And again, remember, the 2018 general plan update is completed.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Sorry, that was time. Next up is Addison Bulasan.
Aloha kako, Dr. Addison Bulasan, your Kauai County Council candidate. I am so passionate about this topic. You don't even know. 2 minutes, I could just be talking about how passionate I am about this. Long story short here, I support this bill, and here's the reasons why. For the people who are under 50 right now watching this, and for the people above 50 who have kids under 50 who are looking for a home right now, who are having a hard time afford homes, you have to think about the cost of buying a home. And we talked about how homes are not affordable because the market price is too high. Why is it too high? Because the demand is high and there is no new houses being built. Mayor Bernard Cavalli talked about the affordable homes that are being built currently, and that is for people who are in low or lower income. What we don't have is homes for mid or middle class people like me, people who are between 20 and 40 who cannot afford to be in this lower income, but are not rich enough to buy a $700,000 house. This bill enables people to build in town core centers so we can afford homes at our prices. There's so much more to talk about on this. And sorry I'm getting so passionate about this, but I believe that this is part of the solution and what we need to help address, because there's people in our generation and the generations who are coming up that need to be able to afford homes, market prices homes. So that's the condos, that's the apartments, that's the tiny homes that they're looking to build in these town core centers. So I need everyone to come together, please, and help us, our generation, the next generations coming up. Please come together, help us afford homes by looking at diversifying the housing stock, looking at these different solutions, and not continuing building $700,000, $800,000 homes with urban sprawl, and start focusing on innovative ways. And that's what I want to bring with this team. I want to work with all of you. I know you guys care about us. I know you care about the future. So I'm going to put my information in. So let's talk story and let's solve these problems. I'm Dr. Addison. Thank you so much for being here. Love you guys.
Thank you so much, Addison. Next up is Ed Justice.
Hi. So I think the county should always have an affordable housing requirement. That's just my opinion on that. But if we're going to do any sort of new developments of any kind, we have to deal with the traffic infrastructure, because you add how many thousands of homes, that's going to be how many thousands more people that are going to be on the road. Okay, this is not going to be just residents that are moving in there. And so we need to open up more bypasses. Bypasses have been on the plans for decades. We got to do it. Okay. Also, we can free up more low-price housing by using existing inventory, incentivizing TVRs to rent to residents. We can also incentivize more additional dwelling units, additional residential units. We can also create a tiered residential property tax system like you see on Oahu and other counties, where the higher value taxed homes, the revenue that is additional from that can go directly to county low price housing projects. And I think for the county, we need a property ladder, okay? And I think the county can do this with its housing projects. It's because renting is not going to get you easily into owning a home. So if the county can help bridge that gap by making lower price housing, then that would be the answer, because that gets you from here to here. And how that can happen is that the county maintains permanent ownership of a home, of the affordable housing homes, right? And how that works is that you go in, you buy the home, and it's going to be at a much lower rate. And when you sell that home, you have to sell it back to the county. And so what you're doing is, instead of paying a mortgage company or a bank, you're reinvesting back in yourself. And then you can use that money that you've saved to buy another home, and a home that is in our regular inventory. And I think this would be a really great way to do it, and also prevents house flipping, because that's the problem I see with the county's temporary ownership of low-price housing units. So there's so many options, and I think this would be a really great way to do it. We could keep talking about this more and more. I look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ed. Next up is Luke Evslin.
Thanks, Jesse. So real quick, not only has the current ordinance not produced any affordable housing units, but it's also stifled the supply of housing, right? New homes fell off a cliff since the ordinance was passed. It's important to note that in the majority of the country, market rate affordability is achieved by if the supply of housing meets the increase in population growth, homes filter into the affordable housing market, right? It's the same as if you're going to buy a used car, you're going to buy, or trying to find an affordable car, you're going to buy a used car. The only way used cars would appreciate in value is if we stopped selling new cars on Kauai, right? And population kept on going up. That's exactly what's happening right now in our housing market. The cost of existing homes on Kauai has appreciated by 58% since 2012, right? So you buy a home for $500,000 in 2012, that exact same home would be $780,000 today, right? $40,000 per year, that's making $19 an hour at a full-time job, just on the appreciating value of your average home on Kauai, right? And if that money was just coming out of thin air, then great. But the problem is that money is coming out very literally out of the pockets of my generation and the next generation, right? And every single year, we get further and further away from home ownership, or into bigger and bigger levels of crushing debt. And so 2 quick studies to reference. One is that a study done by the county showed that 1% of our new development is happening in our town core areas. 80% of our new development is happening on ag land and low density residential land, right? So we're consuming ag land, not building where we should be building, forcing people to drive far, carbon emissions, infrastructure crisis, etc. Second study is the county commission study looking at the housing ordinance, said that it makes development infeasible within our town cores. The current ordinance makes development infeasible, right? Those 2 things are related. We cannot develop within our town cores, so we are sprawling outwards. As far as going forward, a couple of things. One, the exemption is important, right, to stabilize the market price of housing. Number 2, we do need workforce requirements in areas outside, right, as the current bill does. Number 3, we need more subsidized support for housing to ensure that people 60 and 80% AMI can find a house, right? We spend 1/7, time's up.
Sorry, yes.
2 more things. 1/7 the amount on house construction as highway construction, and higher property taxes on TVRs and vacation rentals.
Thank you so much, Luke. Mahalo nui. And next up is Errol Kanashiro.
Okay, thanks. This is the question I've been looking forward to all night. Let me make this clear. The current affordable housing policy, which has been in place for over 10 years, has produced 0 affordable homes. The policy has single-handedly discouraged any development that would create affordable homes. It is not working and needs to be changed. We are in a housing crisis, and there's no single solution that will get us out of it. The general plan shows that at even 1% population growth, we'll have a deficit around 9,000 homes by the year 2035. The county alone cannot build us out of this housing crisis. We need private development to assist us with our housing shortage. The whole intent behind the proposed exemptions, which is only one out of a bunch of changes to the policy, is to promote housing in town core areas and to build denser communities. Reducing barriers to infill development will expand housing inventory without consuming open space or ag land. It places housing where infrastructure, jobs, and public services are located. And in addition, creating higher density attached homes will force units to be smaller and therefore more affordable for Kauai residents. We need to do better than producing 0 affordable houses. And scare tactics and misinformation about the bill and its intent does not help at all. As has been said in every single meeting since its inception, there's no rush to pass the bill. Now is the time for the public to provide specific and insightful information to help improve the bill and promote the creation of affordable homes. There is one quick solution we could do, which would be to build a big skyscraper in the middle of Lihui. But again, that's not an option for us. We're gonna keep our height restrictions the way it is. And so the only thing we can do is try to incentivize infill. In regards to purchasing of distressed properties and abandoned buildings, I will say we did hear from the housing department about this, and they told us it's difficult to do. The county has a procurement process that we need to follow and due diligence, and it makes it pretty much impossible for us to pick up one of these properties due to our slow ability to be able to purchase. But I can tell you what we are doing with our money. We're leveraging our money with private developers on affordable housing projects. And I'll give you a quick example.
Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry.
Mahalo, Errol. Next up is Victoria Franks.
All right. Everyone has a lot of wonderful ideas. And what we can all agree on is that the way things have been going, it hasn't been working. And when a CEO comes into a company that things aren't working, they identify what's not working and stop doing that. And that's what we need to do in regards to affordable housing. What hasn't worked, just stop doing that. Look for the best option that provides affordable housing and then housing for our middle income people, because that's what we need. As far as the incentives for the developers, I think that would be awesome. Anything we can do to bring them in. And as far as the distressed or vacant properties, I had actually discussed this with Mayor Carvalho many years ago when I was part of your Homeless Solutions Summit. And we had discussed this, and there were roadblocks as far as permitting, liability, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's something we need to look into. And I know it may not be a lot of properties. We can even make those things redone and make them, available to the homeless. But one of the things is if it just helps one family get a house, that's what's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Next up is Jade Vayaleale Batan.
We have a severe housing issue on our island, and I applaud those who propose solutions. It seems that the existing density and affordability regulations have failed to produce significant amounts of any kind of housing, and may even have inhibited development of affordable housing. It is counterproductive to protect a system that is broken. Multifamily projects can often produce housing at lower costs than one-off housing. Let's free the builders from regulations that have not worked and see if they can help us solve our housing problems. Meanwhile, let's work on planning solutions that allow options like cluster housing, and that can provide the benefits of reduced costs from higher density while preserving open space. If developers are able to identify distressed and abandoned buildings, our county housing department should be encouraged to work with them to develop affordable housing options for our residents. And like Mayor Carvalho said, he named all of the housing projects that are going on, and we have a lot of developments being done, but it's not enough. Moving out of COVID-19 and this global pandemic, we're gonna need a few things. We're gonna need jobs, food, and homes. And that's what we need to provide for our beautiful garden island of Kauai and Ni'ihau and our people. And if given the chance, I would love to be on this county council body that would help move those initiatives forward. So aloha ke kahi I ke kahi. Love one another. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jade. Up next and last is Mason Chalk.
Aloha. Well, I want to first thank the introducers of this bill. And the reason why is that we've gone through multiple task force over the year in the last 8 years, and we have not been able to, as a county, come to a resolution on our county housing ordinance. In addition, I won't repeat everything and all the statistics that were said earlier, but we are in a crisis and we all understand that. We've already increased density in our town cores. This needs to be worked on, and it needs not to be forgotten. We cannot scrap this bill, we need to work on it. And so the short 2-minute answer is that we need to take this bill each step of the way. Look at it, look at every single exemption, look at the current situation with COVID-19 and how housing will be affected and what the future change will look like. We need to engage our stakeholders. We need to find that sweet spot so that housing can occur. All of the projects that Mayor Bernard talked about were led by the county. Okay, this bill is about how it is we get developers to take their piece of this, of our housing shortage, and build housing. And that requires them to figure out a way to build affordable housing for us. And so it's going to require us to take the 30% inclusionary zone and have a whole meeting on that. We're going to have to pick the 50-year affordable term and break that apart and figure out what works best for all stakeholders. And that is where we are with this. And so this, I'm not going to give up on it. If it takes the rest of this term and the next term with whoever else is there, I'm going to stick with it no matter what position I'm in, because this is too important of an issue for us to turn away from. And so I look forward to anyone who is on the council to get very acclimated and understand the dynamics of what it is we're working on and how it is we can address. To answer the question about distressed buildings, absolutely. The county can look at this. We have a revolving housing fund. We funded about $4 million a few years ago. We're using that funding, but it costs money to purchase these distressed buildings. One example that's great is in Waimea, 400 acres there. I hope that we see affordable housing in perpetuity for the next generation there. And I think it's possible when we can leverage in partnership with private entities, our own dollars so that the county can hold those units in perpetuity. So help us increase the housing revolving fund and we can get more affordable housing on this island.
Mahalo, Mason. Thank you to all the candidates and current council members for your answers. Marathon. And I think systemic change and improvement is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. To wrap it up, I'm going to hand it over to David Dinner.
Well, that was amazing. One thing I'd like to say to anybody who's still tuned in, and I'm sure everybody's on the edge of their seat, please be sure to register and vote. The primary election date is August 8th, 2020, and the general election on November 3rd. All registered voters will receive mail-in ballots on or before July 22nd. If you're not registered to vote and have not received your ballot by the 27th of July, the county will open its voter service center for 10 days, July 27th to August 8th. During these 10 days, you can walk in to register and vote in person, even if you missed the July 9th primary registration deadline. The voter service center has moved from the historic county building to the P.E. Kauai building. You know, that's right across from DMV. 444 Rice Street, conference room A and B. So, Jesse Brown Clay, Juna Apala, and I, David Dinner, on behalf of the Community Coalition of Kauai and the Just Transition Hawaii Coalition, thank you candidates for participating and the community for taking the time to tune in. You can't imagine how much we appreciate you guys for doing this. It's just amazing. The forum has been taped and will be available on the Community Coalition Facebook page and on the Community Coalition website. The recording of this live broadcast will also be available on other sites, including Hoike Community Television and KKCR's archives. We will be letting you know on our website and Facebook on how to access it later. Please encourage those who missed it to tune in. And the reason I apologize for racing a little bit towards the end was that we had a deadline for Hoike and we may have cut some of the end of it. And if we did, I certainly apologize. I didn't want to cut people off as we went, and I tried to give a little extra time as we went along, but it just started to get very late. So thank you again so much, and aloha.